Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible and honestly deeply emotional true story of how Sundar Pichai went from a tiny, crowded apartment in India to leading the most powerful tech companies in the entire world. You know, when we look at global leaders today, it's so easy to just assume they were handed every advantage, right? But Pichai's story is the absolute antithesis of that. It is a masterclass in how big dreams, raw resilience, and just this unwavering desire to learn can completely shatter the limitations of your environment.
There is this ultimate contrast in his life that we really need to wrap our heads around. Today, as the CEO of Google and Alphabet, he earns an estimated $240 million a year. He is literally shaping the internet for billions of us every single day. But back in 1972, when he was born, his reality was vastly, almost unrecognizably different. His life began in a simple two-room apartment with zero luxuries. No car, no TV, and this massive, seemingly impossible gap between where he started and where he is now, well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
Section 1. Inside the two-room apartment, growing up in 1970s Chennai.
It is incredibly stark to realize that his family lived in a tiny two-room space entirely devoid of standard modern appliances. We're talking about a childhood with no television for entertainment, no refrigerator to keep food cold, and sometimes not even a proper chair for young Sundar to sit and study in. To get around, his family of four would pile onto a single scooter. Space was so incredibly tight that their one living room had to completely transform every night, doubling as the entire family's shared bedroom.
And to make matters even more challenging, imagine those intense, suffocating Indian summers. His family shared just one single fan to cool down the sweltering heat. Yet, despite all of these physical discomforts, the beautiful thing here is that they remained a happy family. They really didn't complain. They lived simply, proving that you absolutely do not need physical comfort to foster an environment of love and big dreams.
12. That's how old Sundar finally was when his family got their very first piece of real technology in the house. And no, it wasn't a computer or a smartphone. It was a basic, heavy, rotary telephone where you had to physically turn the dial for every single digit. But you know what? That clunky, simple rotary phone ended up being a massive turning point. It actually revealed his special gift to his family. Sundar discovered he had a photographic memory. He could perfectly recall every single phone number he ever dialed, even if he'd only called it once. It was really the first undeniable spark of the brilliant analytical mind that was quietly developing in that small apartment.
Section 2. Curiosity as currency, a wealth of knowledge in a small space. So without a computer or obviously the internet to just quickly search for answers, young Sundar constantly asked his father endless questions. His dad worked as an electrical engineer at a British company called GEC, and Sundar wanted to know exactly how machines were built, how electricity actually traveled through wires, and the mechanics behind how that new telephone worked. His hunger for knowledge was absolutely relentless.
And thankfully, his father patiently answered these questions every single evening after coming home from the factory. He taught Sundar this invaluable lesson. Behind every great thing in the world, there's hard work, discipline, and design. This philosophy completely fueled Sundar's early engineering mindset. It proved that a lack of financial resources does not have to mean a lack of intellectual resources, as long as you have the curiosity to ask and someone willing to teach.
Section 3. The Great Leap and Sacrifice, the immense struggle from IIT to Stanford.
Making it to IIT, which is one of the absolute top engineering colleges in India, wasn't the end of his struggles. It was really just getting thrown into the deep end of a new arena. Imagine walking in there, surrounded by wealthy, highly confident peers from big cities, and realizing you have never even touched a real computer. His English was still developing, he was deeply soft-spoken, and he felt entirely out of place. But did he quit? No way. Instead of complaining, he silently outworked everyone around him. While others partied, he was in the computer labs, observing, reading, and completely immersing himself in coding on his own time.
And that silent grind, it paid off big time when he was accepted into a master's program at Stanford. But then came a monumental hurdle. $1,000. That was the cost of the flight to America. Now, to put that into perspective, $1,000 was more than his father's entire yearly salary. They had no credit cards, no internet banking, and zero sponsors.
Demonstrating the ultimate parental sacrifice, his father didn't even think twice. He took out a loan, drained all of his life savings, and borrowed from relatives because of this incredibly powerful belief. If I invest in my son's education, it will change his life. That single decision, born out of pure love, gave Sundar the ticket he needed to change not just his own life, but literally the digital landscape of the entire world.
Landing in California with just one single suitcase, the culture shock was immense. He went from crowded streets and strict traditional classrooms in India to the quiet, highly resourced halls of Stanford, where students drank coffee during lectures and fired tough questions at professors. But the most staggering shock? The tech. When he first saw a modern computer with 24/7 internet access, he didn't even start typing right away. He just stared at it. He simply couldn't believe this kind of technology actually existed. But once that shock wore off, he practically lived in those labs.
Section 4. From nothing to everything. The payoff of relentless humility. His ascent in Silicon Valley was absolutely breathtaking. In 2004, he walked into a growing tech company called Google and landed a job as a quiet product manager. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but he was definitely the most observant. He pushed for Google to build its own browser, an idea that senior leaders initially rejected, thinking it was way too risky. But Sundar relentlessly championed it, and in 2008, Google Chrome launched and, well, completely took over the world. His user-first mindset, totally free of massive ego, continually pushed him up the ranks, leading him to be named CEO of Google in 2015 and eventually CEO of the parent company Alphabet in 2019. Today, he controls the flow of information for billions of people and sits at the very peak of global wealth and influence. Yet this profound quote perfectly encapsulates his spirit. "My goal was never to be rich. My goal was to be useful." It proves he never forgot his roots in that sweltering two-room apartment. He still approaches global challenges with the exact same quiet humility he had as a boy, just trying to figure out a rotary phone.
Section 5. 6 timeless lessons, rules to live by from Sundar's journey.
He succeeded because he lived by a few core principles. First, he remembered that your background absolutely does not define your future. Where you start is just a starting line, nothing more. 2, he stayed curious, like a child, asking questions endlessly. 3, he stayed impeccably humble even as he rose higher and higher, letting his work speak for itself. 4, he chose kindness over ego, understanding true leadership is about lifting others up. 5, he realized success is truly about usefulness, not just chasing a paycheck. And finally, number 6, he believed in his own journey, even when he felt entirely out of place.
Knowing that Sundar Pichai built a global legacy that touches almost every single human being on the internet, and remembering that he started with no phone, no car, and no computer, I want to leave you with this final powerful question to challenge your own potential. What will you build with what you have today?